Hi everyone, welcome to my channel, Tutorlini Test Prep. Today I will be providing a full walkthrough of the Digital SAT Math Practice Test number 5. I highly recommend you complete the exam yourself in the Blue Book app before watching this video. Let's get started with Module 1. Okay guys, first question. So this is a linear equations problem. I'm going to pull out these keywords. Should eat 25 calories per pound of the rabbit's weight. And then it says plus an additional 11 calories. So the equation of a line in slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. This keyword per pound, that kind of tells me this is a slope, so that's the m. And this an additional 11 calories, that sounds like a fixed amount or like a flat, kind of like a flat fee if this were a money problem. So this is the y-intercept, or your b. So if m equals 25 and b equals 11, the equation is y equals 25x plus 11. You'll notice that instead of y, they use the letter c for the dependent variable, so we can just swap that out. And that gives us answer choice D, which is the answer. Good. Okay, this is question 2 of this module. So this is a one-step unit conversions problem. Please go watch my Ottocento on unit conversions if you haven't already. I promise you, it'll make it way easier. I can't remember which number it is. I think it's like 1, 2, or 3. It's one of the first couple ones. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take what they gave us, which is 39 fathoms. And we're going to set up a parenthesis. And we're going to take the unit conversion, 1 fathom equals 6 feet. And we're going to put one of those on the top and one of those on the bottom. The one that we're going to put in the bottom in this case is fathoms. That way, so we'll put 1 fathom on the bottom and 6 feet on the top. And the reason we're doing that is so that the fathoms are on opposite sides of the division sign fence, and we want them to cancel. So they will cancel out, and we will be left with feet. Now, this is a really simple problem, but I highly suggest you get in the habit of just forcing yourself to type these in the calculator exactly as you wrote it, because it's really, really easy to make a careless mistake, especially as these get more complicated. So just to set a good example, I'm going to do that anyway. So let's take this here. What was it? 39 parentheses 6 over 1. And I get 234. Okay, so let's jot that down. So this is 234 feet. And that is answer choice A. And that is the answer. Great. Okay, question 3 of this module. It may seem like this is testing us on parallel lines, but it's actually not testing us on parallel lines at all. It's testing you on what's called vertical angles. So angles that are across from each other in an X shape are congruent. They have the same measure. So those red ones are equal and those green ones are equal. So I noticed that these two are across from each other, so they are vertical angles. So X is equal to 145. And that is answer choice C, which is the answer. That is it. Quick sidebar. You do need to be able to, even just given one number, very quickly determine all of the angles kind of around that circle. So as we talked about, this guy is 145. And then because the ones on the side form a straight line, those guys are supplementary. So if we do 180 minus 145, we'll get 35. So these guys are 35 degrees. And if you went and checked, you go, okay, the ones across from each other are equal. And if you add up all of them, you should get 360 because it forms a full rotation. Great, let's move on. Okay, for this one, lots of people would say that, question 4 of this module, lots of people would say that a total cost of 58, they would make x 58 and find f of 58, which is wrong. It says total cost, and then it says f represents the total cost. So it's not telling you x is equal to 58. It's telling you f of x, the function, is equal to 58. So I'm going to write that down. F of x equals 58. And let's sub that in here. We're going to swap that guy out with 58. And we get 58 equals 14 plus 4x. Subtract 14 from both sides. I get 44 equals 4x. Divide both sides by 4, and I get x equals 11. And that's what they wanted. They wanted the x value. How many games? X games. So 11 games. Is that a lot? I don't know. How many games can you play in an arcade these days? All right, so we could also do this one super quickly on Desmos. So let's do that right now. Give me a second here. All right, I think we're good. Okay, so let's say I have f of x equals 14 plus 4x. And then we're going to do f of x, or you could just say y equals 58. And I see that that happens when x is 11. That would have been a really quick way to do that one. Okay, let's move on. All right, question 5 of this module. I noticed that if I factor out the GCF on the left-hand side, I get x minus 7. So I'm going to factor out the GCF, which is 4. 4x divided by 4 is just x. Negative 28 divided by 4 is negative 7. And now to get x minus 7 by itself, we're going to divide both sides by 4. And we get x minus 7 equals negative 6. And that is the answer, answer choice C. We could also do this really quickly on Desmos. This equation doesn't look like it has any complications or anything that's going to give us a hard time just typing it in, so we can literally just type it in. So 4x minus 28 equals negative 24. I see that the solution to the equation is 1, but I have to remember that they want x minus 7, so 1 minus 7 is negative 6. Let's move on. All right, question 6. If you don't know anything about percents, guys, I have like 5 YouTube shorts on percents, and I think my first Ottocento number 1 is on percents. Please go check this out. I'm going to kind of assume you watch that. All right, so it says 20% of the original amount, which is $50. So this question is essentially asking us, just in a really roundabout way, what is 20% of 50? Now, really important to realize, notice how it says the amount of the tip. If it wanted the cumulative bill, so the amount of your bill with the tip included, that would be a 20% increase. Tip is often an indicator of a percent increase on an SAT problem. But because it says it just wants the amount of the tip, all we need to do is do a percent of. So we're going to do a percent of. If it said, what was the amount of the total bill or something, you would do a 20% increase. So just appreciate that slight, subtle difference. All right, so to do a percent of, we divide the percent by 100 and change the of to multiplication. That is all. I typed that in a calculator, and you should get $10. So we're going to lock in 10 as our answer. Now, if you were on Desmos, I do go over this some of my videos. If you were on Desmos, you can type it in like this: 0.2 times 50. And I highly suggest you do that. Now, you could also type in literally the percent button, and it'll put a percent of. But it's kind of like, I don't know, I wouldn't get in the habit of that, because there's going to be symbolic questions where you have to do percent ofs, like where you have to do algebra, and the calculator's not going to be able to do that for you all the time. So it's still really important that you understand how to do it by hand, like I did on the board before. Great. All right, guys. So for this one, for question 7, this is a concept straight out of my Ottocento number 9 on basic statistics. So I'm just going to assume you've watched that. Please go watch it. So essentially the concept here is we're not removing, we're adding this 121. See how it says it's added? It means we basically made a new table and plopped in a 121. So notice how 121 is smaller than all the other numbers. So I like to call that a small outlier. So the situation that we're doing, which I talked about in the other video, is we are adding a small outlier. Hopefully this makes kind of intuitive sense. When you introduce a small outlier, that thing with the lower value brings the mean down. So again, go over that more in my video, but the result that's going to happen is that the mean in the new data set with that number added is going to go down. Hopefully that makes intuitive sense. And we don't need to do any calculation. For median, we might have to check to make sure it does indeed go down. But for a mean, we know it's definitely going to go down. I don't have to do any math. So I'm going to look for an answer choice that sounds like the new data set is smaller. And it's definitely not C. They're not the same. It's definitely not D. We have enough information. It's A. Notice how it's kind of, this is confusing, guys. It's kind of the opposite of how I just interpreted it for you, is the mean of the original data set is greater than the mean of the new data set. That is just what I was saying, but backwards. So like if the mean of the original data set is greater, that means the mean of the new data set is smaller. It went down. Great. We can touch on this really briefly. I go over this in, I think in my Ottocento on statistics as well, but I'll talk about it here. So let me pull this up. So you can actually, make like a list. I'm just gonna call it capital A, nothing to do with the problem. 149, 144, 148, 136. Hopefully I'm doing this right, guys, because I haven't actually done this calculation yet. 139. And I can see the mean of A is 143.2, and then when I add the 121, it goes down to 139.5. It dropped by like at least 2 or 3. So even if you didn't know the concept I just taught you, which you really need to know for harder questions, you still could have gotten this question right pretty quickly. Great. Okay, question 8. So for this one, I'm seeing slope-intercept form and all these, so I'm just going to pick out the slope-intercept form of the graph just by looking at it. So the y-intercept, which is b in mx plus b, that is -1. And the slope is this. You guys can't do this on a digital test, so you're gonna be like, Kyle, this is not helpful. If you're really stuck, you can write some points down and use the slope formula. you can draw it to like maybe the next point that it goes through a corner, and then draw a little triangle and do rise over run. So it goes down 3 and over 1. So -3 over 1, literally, as a fraction, which is just -3. Again, if you have trouble seeing that, don't be afraid to write down 2 points, do y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. That's acceptable as well. Okay, so I know that the equation of the boundary line is y equals -3x minus 1. Now I have to decide what symbol to use. It's a dashed line, so I'm not going to use equal to. If it were a solid line, I would use equal to, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to. It's a dashed line, so I'm going to use greater than or less than. And the reason I'm going to use greater than is because it is shaded above. If it were shaded below, then it would be less than. So, and this is only true when you're in slope-intercept form, guys. So if it's in standard form or something, you have to think about it more complexly. So we're going to say y is greater than -3x minus 1. And that is equivalent to answer choice D. Great. Okay, let's talk about Desmos. So I think it's fair to say you could quite literally just, the window is not that great on mine, guys, because I have this weird like vertical version of the window. Yours isn't going to be like that. You can kind of see that if I plot in D, you could have just typed in all of them and just look at it. You could also pick out a point. A common skill they teach you in school is to pick out the origin and plug it in. So if the origin is in the shaded area, we expect it to be true. And if the origin is not in the shaded area, we expect it to be false. So that won't always get you the answer, but at least narrow it down. So if you plug in 0, 0, and a D, you get 0 is greater than -1, which is true, and we expected it to be true. Again, I don't know, probably the easiest way to do this one is just type them all in. You just type in the first one, go, does it look like that? Nope. Second one, does it look like that? Nope. You just keep going. Great. Okay, question 9. So really important, guys, what we're going to do is, because we're subtracting, we have to be very careful to distribute this negative sign to both of the terms on the right. If there were a plus sign there, we really would literally do nothing. We would just get rid of the parentheses. But because that minus sign is there, we have to be sure to distribute it to the right set of parentheses. So we're going to do that. So we get 8x cubed plus 8, x cubed times -1, negative x cubed. And then negative times -2 is +2. You just change the sign of everything that's in there. That's it. Okay, now we combine the like terms. 8x cubed minus x cubed minus 1x cubed. There's an implied 1 there. Is 7x cubed. And so those two are good. And 8 plus 2 is 10. So we're going to do 7x cubed plus 10. That is answer choice B. I think that was by far the easiest way to do it. That being said, I did go over this in one of my videos, my Desmos videos. Equivalent expressions, guess and check by graphing. If you have an equivalent expressions question and it's all just one variable, or in other words, x's, even if it's another variable, as long as it's just one, you can just change it to x. It doesn't matter. So I'm going to type in the original, 8x cubed plus 6 minus x cubed. Not that helpful for this question, but it might be helpful for a harder question, kind of like this, all right, so I'm going to type in answer choice A. 8x cubed plus 6. Okay, these graphs are not on top of each other. The blue does not perfectly replace the red. So that is wrong. I'm going to unhighlight that. And now we'll do B, 7x cubed plus 10. What's going on? Oh, I see. I mistyped this here. It's really hard with all the screens and monitors and everything. All right, now let's look. Yeah, you see, when I turn these guys on and off, the green one perfectly replaces the red. So that means they have infinitely many solutions, and they are equivalent. So that is the correct answer. Could have got that one really quick, pretty much without knowing anything. Let's move on. Okay, question 10. Once again, guys, y equals mx plus b, where m is the slope and b is the y-intercept. Something you should be on the lookout for whenever you do a linear equations question, or almost any question, is intercepts. So the y-intercept b is when x is 0. Notice how x is 0 here. So they're telling us b is 9. So we just know that straight off the bat. That is super helpful. And I look at the answer choices, and you see really only 2 of them have a y-intercept of 9. So B and C are out. Don't care about those anymore. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the slope formula, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1 to calculate the slope. I could call this one x1, y1, and then the other one x2, y2. So it doesn't matter as long as you're consistent with whatever way you decide. 17 minus 9 over 1 minus 0. So that gives us a slope of 8. So if m is 8 and b is 9, that means the equation is y equals 8x plus 9, which is answer choice D. Okay. We very easily could have did this on Desmos as well. Let's do that right now. Okay, so I'm going to make a table, and I'm going to just type in the points. So 0, 9, 1, 17. And we can't just guess and check because there's multiple choice, but even if it wasn't multiple choice, we could still figure it out. So using regression, so y1 tilde mx1 plus b. I go over this in my Desmos lesson on regression. I'll unhighlight that. I'm going to read the parameters 8 and 9 and translate those parameters back to the equation just by using substitution. Y equals 8x plus 9. And certainly, it seems like we did a good job. And that matches answer choice D. Great, let's move on. Okay, question 11. So let's this isn't normally what I would do, but I kind of just noticed that if I add 7 to both sides, the equation will look like this: d minus 30, d plus 30 equals 0. And that's really convenient because when I did that, it's equal to 0. I can now use the zero product property, which I covered in my Ottocento factoring video. So d minus 30 is equal to 0. D plus 30 is equal to 0. D equals 30 if I add 30 to both sides, and D equals negative 30. So either of these would be acceptable answers. It doesn't specify which one to use, so I'm just going to put 30. Which is right. If the 7 didn't just happen to cancel out with the 0, what you would do is you would expand, you would like multiply the d minus 30, d plus 30 together, and then either get all the terms to one side and factor, or in this case, the only term you have with a variable is going to be d squared. So you would just get d squared by itself and take the square root. Anyway, there's tons of ways to do this. Let's look at Desmos. And we can also solve this in about 10 seconds. So I'm not really sure. I'm just going to type in the original question with x's instead of d's. And I'm not really sure what the point of this question is. I don't know what we're supposed to learn here, but yeah, you see you can get the answer negative 30 and 30 very quickly. However, right, remember guys, you're going to get harder questions, especially towards the end of that second module. So you have to practice doing questions by hand, regardless of if it seems easier to do it on Desmos or not. So still try to force yourself to do both, at least when you're practicing, even if it's not what you're going to actually do on test day. Let's move on. Okay, question 12. There's no math on this one, guys. We quite literally just look at the equation and do what's called a little unit analysis. I've gone over these in many of the blue videos. They ask these questions a lot. So if you've watched my other practice test videos and book videos, you'll have seen this before, like this exact type of question. If you've even taken the blue book test, you'll have seen this question before. So here's how I like to think about it. Essentially what I do is I pay attention to that number on the other side by itself, and I try to think what the units are. So it says $896. So the units of this guy on the right are dollars. Here's the concept. All the terms in an equation have to have the same units. Otherwise, the equation doesn't make sense, right? Like if I told you 2 inches plus 3 miles equals 5 kilometers. Doesn't make any sense, right? In order for the equation to work, all the terms have to have the same units. So that means this term must have units of dollars. And this term also must have units of dollars. So I'm going to look at what they told me X and Y were. They said X was the number of small containers and Y is the number of large containers. Okay, so why don't I just call that small and large. And what we're going to do is we're going to, much like when we do a unit conversion, we're going to multiply those units by something that gives us dollars. So the thing we want to get rid of, in this case, the number of small containers, we're going to put that on the bottom, and we're going to put dollars on the top so that they cancel out and we're left with dollars. And they didn't ask us about the large containers, but we'll put that over here too. This would be dollars per large. So you see, now that you have this kind of skeleton chart, there's like 6 different questions they could ask you. And now that you have this written down, you can very easily answer it. For example, the total amount of money made by the large containers, that's 6.07Y. The number of large containers, that's Y. The price per large container, that's 6.07. You guys see what I'm saying? So this one asks, they want the price of each smaller container, or in other words, the price per smaller container, which is this one, 4.51. So that's the answer. Now, I want to point this out, guys. College Board also says, this is a typo at the time of this recording, right? This is a typo. They'll probably fix it. They say that the fraction answer, 451 over 100, is acceptable. And that's actually not true. That would be marked wrong. So fractions are acceptable. However, I go over this in my Desmos student-produced response video. They have to be 5 characters or less. So if you type in 451/100, that's like 7 characters. So like the Blue Book app will literally just stop and not let you type the fraction in. So when that happens, you have to resort to using a decimal answer. So yeah, that answer key is kind of fake news. Don't listen to that. Great, next question. Okay, question 13. So this is testing us on exponential functions with an interval. I have this, I have a, again, guys, there's not really much point in me going over it in super long detail if there is a short, concise video that goes over it. So please go watch my shorts on this in the shorts tab. It's exponentials plus time. I think there's 3 of them. They're already up. And they go over this equation a lot. A is the initial value, or the y-intercept. B is the multiplier. T is just time. That's nothing special. That's just like x, right? N is the interval. The interval is how often you are applying that multiplier fully. So for example, if I was tripling every 5 years, B would be 3 and N would be 5. Anyway, you kind of see what I'm saying. So please just go watch those videos before you solve this question. Anyway, so what I'm going to do is, so I don't get confused, I'm going to literally just write down on my scratch paper what each of those numbers represents, like I do in the shorts. And then I'll answer the question. So I'm going to make sure I fully understand what the function is saying. Then I read the question. Okay, so A is 500. So that means we started with 500 particles. And again, I'm going to highlight the numbers, guys. 500, 0.5, and 12. So you guys can kind of see it. Okay, so B is 0.5. So we could say it's having. Sometimes you'll see it say having, like multiply by half. Or sometimes you'll see like it in a percent. Why not do it in a percent just for the sake of being thorough? So if we take that multiplier and do 100 times the percent multiplier minus 1, like I do in my videos, we get negative 50. So it's a 50% decrease. So I'll just go with that, but you could also say it halves, like just in English, right? Halve means to multiply by 0.5. Okay, great. Let's come back over here. So I'll say 500 particles, they undergo a 50% decrease every n is 12, but the unit isn't years, it's like millimeters because we're digging in the ground. I have no idea what's going on. It doesn't matter. Every 12 millimeters. So boom, now I fully understand what's going on and I'm ready to tackle the question, whatever it's asking me, right? All right, so let's see. It says we want the estimated number of particles when it is at the surface. So that means 0 millimeters below the surface. It's kind of like saying ground level. Literally, ground level. So so we want the y value when x equals 0. In other words, we want the y-intercept. In other words, we want the initial value, which is a. And remember earlier we said a is 500. So for this one, the answer is 500. And if you weren't sure, you also could have just plugged in x equals 0 into your calculator. You could have typed in this function and put f of 0, and you would get 500. So great, let's move on. Okay, question 14. So for this one, before you watch this, I mean, there's a lot of questions like this, but you should really watch my Ottocento. I think it's number 5 on function translation, so definitely check that out. I'm going to just pull an equation straight from there, and there's going to be a lot of understanding you're going to want to have. Anyway, so if you want to learn more about that, go check that out. I think it's number 5. I'm not sure. Anyway, so do you see how it says if we have f of x minus h plus k, that's a function translation? And they've been asking a lot about this on the digital SAT. So do you see this expression here, f of x plus 5? So h is the horizontal translation, so you see there's no h, right? K is 5. Okay, let's write that down. K equals 5. And this graph above, it's really important to read this, guys. The graph above is f. So if we want to go from f to this new graph, f of x plus 5, we want to shift it 5 up. Well, we're going to move it 5 up. So we have to translate it 5 units up. This gets really confusing because sometimes, guys, when they give you the already translated graph and they want you to go back to the original, you have to go backwards. So like, even though the question says, oh, it got moved 5 units up, but like if you mix up which one's the starting one and which one's the final one, you won't realize that you actually have to move it 5 down. That's not the case in this question, but you're going to see other problems, I think even later in this video, that do that. So just pay very close attention. It's like, is this the starting graph, or is this the graph that already got moved and I need to go backwards to get the original one? So just keep that in your head. All right, anyway, so all we have to realize that we need to move this 5 up. I'm just going to pick out a point that goes through a grid marker. So how about This one, it's, I think, what, 3 comma 3. And if we move it 5 up, that would be 3 comma 8. 3 plus 5. The y coordinate goes up by 5, so that would be 8. So I'm just going to look for one that kind of looks like this and has 3 comma 8. So no. No. Okay, I think it is D. And let's see, did that point 3 comma 8 show up? Yep, 3 comma 8 right there. So again, guys, to translate a point, you just literally, if it's going up, you add it. If it's going down, you subtract it. If it's going right, you add it. If it's going left, you subtract the x coordinate. So this would be 3 comma 8. Anyway, great. Let's move on. Okay, question 15. So what we're going to do is, this is a literal equations question. It says in terms of, so whatever comes before the in terms of is what I'm going to try to get by itself. So we want to get C by itself. So why don't I circle where C is just to kind of make that clearer for you guys. That's the thing we're trying to get by itself. These questions are really, really hard to learn how to do because there's like a bunch of different types of literal equations they could ask you. So it's only one question on the exam. If you're not willing to put in lots of time to study this, go do something else because this isn't going to help. All right, so I'll show you this. Just because you know how to solve this one doesn't mean you're going to know how to do the next one by any means. So please focus your time on more high-yield questions if you don't have a lot of time. All right, so I'm going to move the thing that's farthest away first, reverse order of operations almost. So PEMDAS, we're going to work our way back up. So I'm going to do parentheses last, and I'll do this multiplication first, this n. What we're going to do is we're going to divide both sides by n to move the n. And we get p over n equals, and this guy goes away, 19 minus c. Now, the next thing I'm going to move is the 19. So I'm going to subtract 19 from both sides. And notice when I do these questions, guys, I'm being really particular to show the algebra. That's not just to show you, that's so I don't make a mistake. So I get p over n minus 19 equals negative c, because again, this guy goes away. And now to get rid of the negative sign in front of the c, we're going to multiply both sides by a negative 1. If you didn't know this, when you multiply a difference by a negative 1, what you can do is you can just switch the order. So like if I had 5 minus 3, that's 2, and if I multiply by that negative 1, I get negative 2. If I do 3 minus 5, see I just switched it? That's also negative 2. So you see, that's just something you kind of want to know. Put in your algebra toolbox is when you multiply a difference by a negative sign, you just switch them around. So multiply both sides by negative 1, and I get positive c equals 19 minus p over n. And that is looking like answer choice D. And that is correct. Let's move on. Okay, great. Question 16. This is a box or a cube, right? So I'm just going to write this on the board, even though it's not that helpful for right now. The surface area of a cube is 6s squared, where s is the side length. And the volume is s cubed. This shows up, it's not on the reference sheet, and this shows up often enough where you probably just want to memorize this. So it might just be something you want to know. That's just going into this question, something you should know. All right, so now it wants us to find the surface area, but here's the catch. It says the box does not have a lid. So the reason why it's 6s squared is because a cube, take a tissue box if you have it, count the faces. There's 6 faces, 4 lateral faces, 1 on the top, 1 on the bottom. If you remove one of the faces, you now have 5 faces. So the surface area of this weird box without a lid is 5s squared, not 6s squared, because it's not 6 times for 6 faces, it's 5 times for 5 faces. So the surface area is going to be 5 times the side length is 29 squared. And you could just put that on your calculator. We should get 4205. Anyway. Great, let's move on. All right, guys, I've gone over this in like at least like 5 of my videos, but it would be kind of hard to find if this is your first video. So it doesn't really have a designated video. So I will try to find some notes and put it on the screen. I'm going to pause the recording. Give me 1 second. Okay, so this doesn't cover everything, but this covers the vast majority of what you need to know. So again, you can do these questions on Desmos anyway, so it's a moot point, but I digress. So you isolate the absolute value. Then absolute value can only be 0 or positive. So you look at what's on the other side. So you see in the first example, we have a negative number. So that means it has absolute value can never be negative, so it has no solution. When absolute value is equal to 0, it has one solution, and all we do is drop the bars. That's not so bad. The one that gets everyone, and this is the one they're going to ask us now, is when there's a positive number on the other side, there are 2 solutions. So you write one equation, in this example, x minus 4 equals 2, and then you write another equation where you drop the bars and you put a negative on the other side. So x minus 4 equals negative 2. Then you solve both of them, and they often, as a follow-up question, to force you to get both answers right, they have you add them up. That's it. So pause this video, jot this down if you've never seen this before. Great, let's go back to the questions. Okay, so I think we're ready for question 17. So as we talked about, we have to get the absolute value by itself. This one is not. So the first thing we're going to do is subtract 45 from both sides. So we do that, and we get absolute value of x minus 9. 63 minus 45 is 18. Now we see that the 18 is positive. So that means it has 2 solutions, as we talked about before. So we need to write 2 equations. X minus 9 equals 18, and x minus 9 equals negative 18. To solve both of them, this one's not so bad. All we need to do is add 9 to both sides. If we add 9 to both sides here, we get 27. If we add 9 to both sides here, we get negative 9. And the sum of 27 and negative 9 is 18. So the answer to the question is 18. Great, let's look at Desmos. We can do this very easily. So if you type in the original equation, you're not going to be able to click on it. So what we're going to do is I'm going to use the Desmos number 1 strategy where we split the equation up into a system. So y equals, I'm just going to type in the left-hand side, x minus 9 plus 45. And then y equals 63. And I zoom out, and I can very clearly see there's 2 solutions. One of them's negative 9, one of them's 27. I go over here, negative 9 plus 27. 18. This is one of the hardest questions in this module. I just did that in about 15 seconds, and I was explaining it to you, so you could probably do it faster. Again, I'm not really sure what the purpose of the question was, but I would still suggest you know how to do absolute value equations by hand, because you could get a harder, more conceptual question on your test. Okay, question 18. So this is kind of a weird example of, I'm actually going to show you the calculator first because it is so much harder to do this without a calculator. It easily takes a couple minutes longer. So we're actually going to do the calculator first, just to kind of push you in that direction a little, as weird as that might be. Okay, so Give me 1 second to pull up the scientific calculator. Okay, so this is you wouldn't actually use it on screen during your test. This is a physical calculator you can own. I just use the on-screen version so you guys can follow along. So this is allowed on your test. There's a bunch of types of scientific calculators that can do exact number math for you very easily. So the first thing I'm going to do, there was no degrees sign on that angle. So it's radian. So we have to change it to radian. So I'm going to press mode, change it to radian. And now I'm just going to type in tan fraction 92 pi over 3. And I get negative root 3. Great. Done. Let's go back and lock that in. Okay, so the answer is A. And we can also do this on Desmos, even if you didn't have a fancy calculator, because fancy, I mean, they're less than $20, I think. But you can use Desmos, not because Desmos can do exact numbers, but because it's multiple choice, so you can guess and check. So let's do that now. So let's pull up Desmos. And you'll notice, guys, if you click on this wrench, it's in radians by default. But if you got a degrees question, you got to change it. So it's in radians by default. So don't need to worry about that. Tan of fraction 92 pi will give you pi over 3. And I go, I don't know what that is. And there's no way to change it on Desmos. But I can type in the answers. Negative square root 3. Oh, that's the answer. And then if you kept going, you would see that the other answer choices are wrong because the decimals don't match. So if you had a scientific calculator or you knew how to guess and check, probably like a 10 or 20 second question. Now, if we do it by hand, it's probably gonna take us at least like 2 minutes. So let me, I'm not really gonna have enough space here for the drawing to be good. So give me a second. I'm gonna pull up the question on a separate slide. All right, so question 18. So you don't have to do this, guys, but I think degrees are so much easier for us to understand because we're comfortable with that. And since you have to know how to convert radians to degrees anyway, we might as well do it, right? It takes like 5 seconds. So all we're going to do is do, there's pi radians and 180 degrees. That's just something you got to know. So to convert to degrees, I'm going to multiply by 180 over pi, so that the radians are on opposite sides of the division sign, and they will cancel. And if you do that on a calculator, you should get 5520 degrees. Now, we want to convert this into an angle between 0 and 360, because that's the unit circle. So what we're going to do is we're going to pull this up and add or subtract 360, and because that's a full revolution, until it's between 0 and 360, so that we get a coterminal angle that we can use to solve the problem. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to literally do minus 360, minus 360, minus 360, minus 360. It's getting smaller, but it's not small enough. I'm just going to keep going. You could also set up a slider to do this. I don't know. It's small enough where I don't really care. We get 120. So 120 is the coterminal angle between 0 and 360. Now we're kind of in business to make our picture. So let's do that. So gonna make my XY plane. We're gonna start from 0 and we're gonna go counterclockwise. 120 degrees is going to put us in this second quadrant. So let's draw a line there. And this guy will be 120 degrees. The reference angle is the angle that is made with the x-axis. So 180 minus 120 is 60. So this angle here is 60, and that is our theta reference angle. that we are going to use to do the trigonometry on. Now I'm going to drop the perpendicular and make a special right triangle. If that guy's 60, this guy must be 30. And this is a special right triangle. So you can look at the reference sheet and pull up a special right triangle. And it doesn't really matter. You could put, you could literally just copy it exactly from the reference sheet. How about I do that just for the sake of simplicity? So the hypotenuse is 2x, across from 30 is x, and across from 60 is x root 3. And we're going to do tan of that yellow angle. So tan of the theta reference. SOHCAHTOA. I just released a Novecento video on this. Go check it out. Sine, cosine, tangent. Tangent is opposite over adjacent. The opposite is x root 3, and the adjacent is x. The x's cancel, and we get root 3, but we now have to check to see if it is positive or negative based on what quadrant it's in. So there's a little helpful mnemonic to remember this. I'll put it on the screen over here. How about? All students take calculus. In the first quadrant, they're all positive. In the next quadrant, S, sine is positive, but the other are negative. Bottom quadrant, T, tangent's positive, the others are negative. The bottom right, cosine is positive, but the rest are negative. So sine is positive in the quadrant we're in, but cosine and tangent aren't. So tangent is going to be negative root 3. And that was the answer. As you can see, guys, doing this question by hand is incredibly pointless. Please, if you have $15 to get a scientific calculator that can simplify square roots and do trig, please get one and watch some of my other videos that go over that. Great. All right, question 19. So I'm seeing right away that all of these are one fraction. So they want us to combine the fractions. So that's what we're going to do. So we need to get an LCD. There's only one denominator. So the LCD is just that denominator, k. To get the other one to have a k on it, well, whatever, it doesn't have a denominator at all. So we're just going to multiply whatever the top and bottom by whatever that LCD is, which is k. So it's kind of like adding 1/2 and 5/6. You know, you got to change the 1/2, but you don't need to change the 6ths. Anyway, so we get 42a over k plus 42a, k times k is k squared over k. Now that they have the same denominator, we can write them over one fraction. So let's do that. 42a plus 42ak squared over k. And now we can factor out the GCF to make it look like the answer choices. The GCF, they both have a 42, and they both have a. So we're going to take out a 42a. 42a divided by 42a is 1. 42ak squared divided by 42a is just k squared. Nothing on the bottom changes. You'll see that this answer is equivalent to D, which is right. This one, notice it has 2 letters. So it would be a little harder to do using Desmos. But what you could do is, I don't know if this is a good strategy to always fall back on, but what you could do is, like, pick valid numbers. Does k is greater than 0? And a, I guess, doesn't matter. Because it's multiple choice, you could kind of guess and check. So I'll just briefly outline this. I don't know if I'll type all of them in, but let's say I'm going to make like k2, and then I'm going to make a5, and oops, messed up. And I got 525. And you could go and type all the answer choices in, and it's not necessarily true, but it's very likely only one of them will give you 525. Let me type in the one we came up with. And I got 525. Why don't you go see for yourself? See if you type in A, B, and C, see if you get a different number. Whenever you're picking random numbers, do not pick 0 and do not pick 1. 0 and 1 have a lot of special properties that can make it seem like two expressions are the same. If you just try to be as random as possible, be like, oh, calculator's going to do it anyway, right? Why don't you do like 3 and 7 or 3 and 10 or, anything. Great, let's move on. Okay, so I think my short on equation of circle, I've talked about this in plenty of videos, but I have a short on equation of circle already out there, so definitely go watch that because the first part I'm just kind of going to breeze through. So equation of a circle is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. And to find the center, what we do is we circle these two numbers and we change the sign. So the center is not positive 4, it's negative 4, and it's not negative 19, it's positive 19. And to find the radius, we take the square root of this guy over here because that guy is r squared. So we take the square root of 121, and that gives us 11. So first, 20 seconds, you need to realize, okay, almost any question like this, you need to figure out what's the center, what's the radius. I would do that even before reading the question. Okay, now it wants us to see that it says a comma b, and what's the possible values of a? Well, a is an x value, so if our center is at negative 4 and we're going plus or minus 11, that means negative 4 minus 11, negative 15. We're going to be between negative 15 and then negative 4 plus 11, which is 7. So we need to pick an answer choice between those two numbers. The only one that's between those two numbers is B. Negative 16 is too small, and 11 and 19 are way too big. This one was also incredibly doable on Desmos, so let's see that. So x plus 4 squared. There's ways to, you can watch my Desmos equation of a circle video if you want to see how to find the center and the radius from using Desmos. It's way more work than what I just did on the board, so it's not really worth your time all the time. It could be helpful on certain types of questions, but not this one. Anyway, so it doesn't matter anyway because we don't need it. So my window's messed up, guys, because this is really shrunk window because of how I have the recording set up. But these are all x values, right? So I'm just going to type all these in. Okay, do you guys kind of see the green one? I'll make this guy orange. The green one, which is x equals negative 14, is the only one that has points on the circle. So if you literally just typed in everything from the question, it should hopefully jump out at you which one is right. Because even if you're not really sure what it's asking, you can kind of tell which one is different from the others, right? It touches the circle. Great, let's move on. Okay, question 21. This is talking about the volume of a right rectangular prism. This is on the reference sheet. You probably should memorize it, but this is on the reference sheet, so you can pull up the reference sheet, clicking this thing up here. And it will tell you that the volume is equal to length times width times height. The question tells me the length is x, so I'm going to put x, and which is 7 inches more than the width. Okay, so that means the width is 7 inches less. So I can make the width x minus 7. And they tell me the height is 9 inches. So I'm going to put height is 9. So you see I did length with height. That part about the 7 inches more was really confusing, but that was I think the only curveball. So anyway, so we give v. We often write coefficients out in front, right? So 9x x minus 7, and that is answer choice D. I think that's right. 1 second. Okay, I think that's D. I think that's right. Not a whole lot we can do with Desmos. I suppose if you wanted to make it easier, you could come up with a random number for x and then like solve it and then plug in x into all of them, but I don't know. It would take kind of a long time. Like you could make x like 10, and then I guess the width would be 3 and the height would be 9. And you could calculate that 10 times 9 times 3, whatever, and then put in that x value 10 into all of them and see which one gives you the same value. You could guess and check, but it would be a lot of work, and I don't know, maybe take a little longer. All right, next question. Okay, guys, so they tell us that for this is question 22, they tell us that negative 24 comma 0 is a point. So I'm going to write that out. 0, make an f of x 0. 0 equals a negative 24, not parentheses, square root. Because they say x is negative 24, right? Negative 24 plus b. So this is the zero product property, just like we were talking about earlier. So either the a is 0 or either this guy is 0. So for a to be 0, well, a would just be 0. Let me write this in different color for emphasis. And if the other guy is 0, negative 24 plus b equals 0, that would mean b is equal to 24 because negative 24 plus 24 is 0. So now the question is, which is it? Well, if a were 0, then it doesn't matter what's inside the square root. It would be 0 times something. And the function would always be 0. So the graph would just be y equals 0, and you would get like a flat line with maybe some limited domain, but it would still just be a flat line. Do you see how the question says f of 24 has to be less than 0? So it's not a flat line on the x-axis. How would the graph be below the x-axis if it's just a flat line on the x-axis? It doesn't make any sense. So it can't be a equals 0, and you'll see what I mean in a minute when we go to Desmos, guys. But so it can't be a equals 0 because then it would just be a flat line, and the information they gave us wouldn't make any sense. So we just learned that b is going to be equal to 24. Now that we know that, we can deduce, again, we could even look at it like this, right? Like the function is now a times the square root of x plus 24. Now, a square root is always going to be 0 or positive. And if a were positive, then the y values would be positive, right? Because positive times positive is a positive. In order for f of 24 to be less than 0, in order for that y value when x equals 24 to be negative, a must be negative. If the square root is always 0 or positive, and a positive times a negative is a negative. So that's the only way that's going to happen if a is negative. So we also just figured out a is negative. And again, this will make more sense when we make a picture, guys, I promise. So if a is negative and b is positive 24, we don't have enough information to figure out what a is, but we know it's negative. A is going to be less than b, always. Because a negative number is always going to be smaller than 24. So that is D. Very confusing question. Okay, let's go and look at Desmos, and I'll show you guys something cool. Okay, so here's what I did here. I made a table, and I did negative 24, comma 0. And I did y1 tilde a square root sqrt x1 plus b. And I'm going to make a some fixed number that I can change. And I'm also going to plot x equals 24 so that you guys can see where f of 24 is very easily. Okay. Do you see how if I made a positive, the y value when x is 24 is just positive? That's no good. But if I make a negative, I don't even think the regression is doing anything. I didn't need to do this. This was just for the sake of being thorough. But if I make a negative, that's only right. And if I make it 0, this is what I was talking about. It's a flat line. We don't want it to be a flat line, and we don't want it to be up here. We want it to be down on the bottom. So if I make a negative, say like -2 or something, we are all good. F of 24 will be negative. Great. Next question. Okay, this is question 1 from module 2A. If you did not get module 2A and you want to skip to module 2B, please see the chapters in the description. You can click on the timestamp and go straight to module 2B. Let's get started with question 1 from this module. So this guy says, we're looking for the vehicle 3 years after it is first purchased. So we're going to look at 3 years. That's right here. And I'll look at where it crosses, and we're looking for the y value. Seems like it's somewhere between 10 and 15,000. A, C, and D are all wrong. So the answer to this one is B. Okay, question 2. So we're trying to find the solution to the system of equations. Solutions are points of intersection. So there could be 0, there could be 1, there could be 2, there could be a couple. But you're just looking wherever the graphs meet, which when it's in black and white, unlike Desmos, can actually be kind of hard to tell, especially since you can't draw on it on the actual exam. So you know, but this one isn't so bad. They cross right here. They even label it with a point for you. And I just carefully, I don't even look at the answer choices. I carefully write down the coordinates. The x coordinate is 4 and the y coordinate is 5. So this is 4, 5. And we're going to go with answer choice C. Okay. All right, question 3. So for this one, we are looking for the x-intercept. So that is the point where it crosses the x-axis, which is right here. So that's the x-intercept. And again, I'm not even going to look at the answer choices. I'm going to write it down so that I know what it is before going to the answer choices. So x is 5 and y is 0. X-intercepts always have y equals 0. Y-intercepts always have x equals 0, so be very careful not to mix that up. We can see that the answer choice is, the correct answer is B, but just be careful because if there was an answer choice, let's say 0, 5, lots of people would have picked that because they would have read it too fast. So I definitely encourage that you figure out what it is, write it down very carefully, then go to the answer choices. Great, let's move on. All right, question 4. So probability is the desired outcomes over the total outcomes. We want the probability that the house is blue. So there are 7 total houses, and there are 2 blue houses. So we say 2/7. If we could, we can't simplify that, but if we could, we might have to. Sometimes they keep the answer simplified, sometimes they don't. I don't know. Regardless, for this one, the answer is B. 2/7. Great. Question 5. So I don't know. We can briefly talk about what these guys look like. So increasing linear always looks like this. It's a straight line and it's going up. Decreasing linear always looks like this. Straight line going down. Increasing exponential usually looks like this, as far as the SAT is concerned. And decreasing exponential usually looks like this. That's called exponential growth is the first one. And then the second one is exponential decay. This is just something you got to know. I mean, even right away, I could clearly see that it's not exponential. It's not curved. It's got to be linear. It's increasing because it's going up as I go left to right. So the correct answer is A. Great. All right, question 6. It doesn't seem like there's a really convenient way to get n plus 4. I don't know. It doesn't matter. So 6n equals 12. I'm going to divide both sides by 6, and I get n is equal to 2. But keep in mind, guys, they don't want 2. They don't want n. They want n plus 4. So we're going to do 2 plus 4, which is 6. So that's going to be the answer. You could go and type that first equation in a Desmos. Probably would have been more work. Great. Let's move on. All right. Question 7. So the question wants us to find f of 10. That just means the y value when x equals 10. So we're just going to plug in f of 10 everywhere we see an x. Be very sure to make sure you use parentheses. So I'm going to do 4 parentheses 10 minus 3. That's 40 minus 3, which is 37. And that would be the answer. If you wanted to make this an ordered pair, you could write 10 comma 37, neither here nor there. Now, before we move on, we probably should talk about how to do that on Desmos. So f of x equals 4x minus 3. And you can just type in f of 10. And we get 37. Great, let's move on. All right, question 8. So it wants the y-intercept. The y-intercept is the point where it crosses the y-axis. So that is this one. And I'm going to write that down before I go to the answer choices. So this is x is 0 and y is negative 4. The only one that looks like that is B. Great. Okay, question 9. This is a linear system. We can use substitution or elimination. I see that both y's are by themselves. So substitution is going to be very straightforward. Really, all I need to do is kind of, set them equal to each other. Like I could plug this one into here. Again, we don't even need to overthink it. We can literally just set them equal because y is by itself in both. So 12x minus 20, that's almost always what you want to do when you see y by itself in both of them is substitution. Okay, now I'm going to add 20 to both sides. I get 12x equals 48. And now I'm going to divide 12 on both sides, and I get x equals 4. And I can see right away that only one answer choice has x is 4, so I don't even need to go and find the y value. And what you would do is you would go and plug it into one of the equations to see what y is. That's what you do with substitution. But we don't even need to do that because they told us y was 28. So it's like, I already know the point is 4 comma 28. Again, neither here nor there. You kind of see they wanted you to find the x value. Okay, let's do it on Desmos as well. So y equals 12x minus 20. And y equals 28. You can zoom out if you want. I'm going to click where they both cross. And it's 4 comma 28. Great. All right, I went over this in my Ottocento number 9 on basic statistics. I'll also have shorts coming out on this very soon. Range is max minus min. Max being the biggest data value, min being the smallest. Fortunately for this one, they actually gave us the numbers in order. So it's pretty easy for us to pick out the max and the min. So the max is 52 and the min is 23. So we're going to do 52 minus 23, which should be 29. So I'm going to lock that in, and that is the answer. Now, believe it or not, it's not that helpful for this one. And it's probably not much easier than doing it by hand, but why don't I just show you anyway? So if the numbers weren't in order, it might be a little harder to tell what the min and max are. So to do the range, you could do max of your list minus min of your list. And you would get 29. I don't think there's a range function. Kind of strange. There's like functions for mean and median, but there isn't one for range. But still, you can just do max minus min. Great. Let's move on. Okay, question 11. This one wants us to find the solution to the system we just talked about a couple of questions ago. Solution is a point of intersection. The point of intersection is right here. Let's write down the point. X is 4, y is 1, so it's 4, 1. And this question just wants the x value, which is 4. So the answer to this question is 4. Great. Question 12. So h of 2, just like we did a couple questions ago, it's just telling us what's the y value when x is 2. So we just plug in x is 2. That thing in the parentheses is always your x. Again, be sure to use parentheses always. 5 times 2 is 10. 10 plus 6 is 16. So this is 8 over 16. If I simplify that, I should get 1/2. And that is the answer. You can also use a decimal, 0.5. It's, you know. Now, we could do this on Desmos very easily. Equals 8/5x plus 6. And I'm going to do h of 2. And it tells me 0.5, which is correct. If you wanted to change it to a fraction, just click the fraction button. It's 1/2. Great, let's move on. Okay, so the equation of a line in slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. They tell us the slope is 39. So that means m is 39. And you see, I don't even need to solve the rest of the question because none of the other answer choices have a slope of 39. The first one, A, has a slope of negative 39. B has a slope of 1 over 39. And C has a slope of 1. So D is the correct answer. Again, not really that important for this question, but for other questions, it's important to realize that when x is 0, that's a y-intercept. So the y-coordinate is your b. So I think I went over that earlier in the video as well. So b is equal to 0. So you didn't even need to do any work. You just had to, you know, basically read it and know that a y-intercept is the y value when x equals 0. Great, let's move on. Okay, question 14. So the minimum and maximum, when we're talking inequalities, these are keywords for like greater than or equal to, less than or equal to. So minimum often means greater than or equal to. I'm just going to use X if that's okay. It doesn't matter. S for snowfall. And maximum is less than or equal to, so x is less than or equal to 1.8. Often how we write that, when there's two kind of like a min and a max and x is kind of sandwiched between them, we use what's called a compound inequality. So 0.6 is less than or equal to x is less than or equal to 1.8. We always use less than or equal to, so that way we're going from smaller to bigger number, kind of like left to right, like a book, like on a number line, you're going from literally from left to right, like a book. And you'll notice, you might be wondering, well, Kyle, there was a greater than or equal to with the 0.6, but if you look carefully, you'll see that like the mouth of the inequality sign is still facing the x, so it's still saying the same thing. Regardless, it was probably important. Yeah, so the answer is D. I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't try not to rely solely based on intuition, but I feel like it was kind of important to have both numbers in the answer in some way. So I don't know. I feel like I just cross off A, B, and C, even if I didn't really fully understand D. Anyway, great. Okay, question 15. So this is just y equals mx plus b with different letters. And the question is asking us about 9. And you see 9 is b, which is the y-intercept. So I'm going to write that down. I'm not even looking at the answer choices yet, guys. Don't care about the answer choices. I'm going to try to interpret it before going to the answer choices so they don't trick me. All right, so it's the y value when x equals 0. So the y, or in this case f, is equal to 9 inches of a vine plant when x equals 0 or t equals 0, and 0 is the months after purchase. Okay, now I think I'm ready to look at the answer choices. Tavon will keep the vine plant for 9 months. No, we just figured out 9 is a y value, and its unit is inches. That's got to be wrong. I'll just right away be like, okay, that was the thing that cued me in. Okay, the vine plant is expected to grow 9 inches each month. No, it's just inches when t equals 0 when he first got it, not per month. That's not mentioned anywhere. Okay, the vine plant is expected to grow a maximum length of 9 inches. Nope. Nope, we don't know that at all. As a matter of fact, this is a linear function, so we're not sure if there is a maximum. Maybe if it were a quadratic, that would make more sense, but not really for here. Okay, the estimated length of the vine plant. The length of the vine plant was 9 inches. Okay, we said that. 0 months after purchase. Okay, that's just a fancy way of saying when Tavon purchased it. Okay, D is the answer. So what did we just learn? The y-intercept is the y value when x equals 0. And if you have function notation, that can get confusing. This letter will be your x, and this guy will be your y. So it's the y value when x equals 0. In this problem, it's the f value when t equals 0. Great, let's move on. All right, question 16. So we want to find the area of the triangle. The formula for the area of a triangle is on the reference sheet. It is area equals 1/2 base times height. When you have a right triangle, the legs act as the base and the height. So we have the legs, so we're in business. We don't really need to do anything. Sometimes they'll make it so that you have to use Pythagorean theorem to solve for one of the sides. We don't have to do that here. We got kind of lucky. So I'm going to treat this side as the base, and then the one going up and down at a 90-degree angle, we'll call that the height. So this is area equals 1/2 base times height, so 5 times 3. put that in a calculator, and I get 7.5. You can also use that as a decimal, as a fraction. I don't really care, you know, if the decimal is terminating. I don't mind using the decimal. That's fine. Great. Let's keep going. All right, question 17. So we can use the slope formula, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. But I'm not going to do that because I see this table. X is going up by 1. Slope is literally the change in y when x goes up by 1. So I can very easily figure out the slope just by looking at the table. So 11 to 16, that's plus 5. And 16 to 21, that's plus 5. So you see, because it's delta y over delta x, because it's going up by 5 as x goes up by 1, well, 5 by 1 is just 5. If it were more complicated, if the x values weren't going up at the same range each time and it wasn't as clear to you, then use the slope formula. But for this one, I don't think we really needed it. Anyway, so the slope is 5. You can use point slope or you can use the partial equation. Most people in school use the partial equation, so I'm going to do that. So y equals mx plus b. So I'm going to write the partial equation, y equals 5x plus b. Then I'm going to pick a point and plug in. How about to solve for b, how about I use this one, 1 comma 11. It doesn't really matter. So y is 11. 11 equals 5 times 1 plus b. Well, 5 times 1 is just 5. And now we subtract 5 from both sides, and we get 6 equals b, or b equals 6. So this means if m is 5 and b is 6, that means the equation is y equals 5x plus 6. And let's see, that is looking like answer choice A, which is correct. We can do this question incredibly easily on Desmos. So let's do that. I made a video on this. It's called Desmos number 9 regression, something like that. I can't remember which number it is, but so they gave us a table. So let's click a plus and put a table. And now we're going to type in the points 1, 11, 2, 16, 3, 21. And I'm going to do y1 tilde mx1 plus b. So it's just y equals mx plus b, but I replace the y and x's with y1s and x1s, and I replace the equal sign with a tilde. This is called regression. It tells Desmos to do a regression. I'm going to unhighlight this, make sure I can translate it back to an equation. Okay, m is 5, b is 6. So I think it's y equals 5x plus 6. And I can now, with, not only did I just, again, I went slower to demonstrate for you guys, but not only can I get the answer in like, 10 or 20 seconds, I have visual proof that it is correct, right? It goes through all those points. So it's like, there's no way it's wrong. It gives you some peace of mind. Great, let's move on. Okay, question 18. This is what's called a linear quadratic system. We almost always want to do substitution for those. And lo and behold, remember what I said, if you got y by itself for both of them, you should use substitution anyway, regardless of what kind of problem it is. That's probably the best way to do it. So once again, just like the one we did a couple of problems ago, all I'm going to do is set them equal. So x squared minus 12 equals 4x. When you have x squared, x, and a constant, the strategy is to get all the terms over to one side. So the 4x is kind of the odd man out. I'm going to move him over to the left side and write it in standard form. So I'm going to subtract 4x from both sides. And we get x squared minus 4x minus 12 equals 0. This is now a factoring with a equals 1 situation. I go over that in my Ottocento number 4 video on factoring. I think it's number 4. So they have to, the two numbers that we come up with have to add to negative 4 and multiply to negative 12. So the two numbers are negative 6 and 2. So we're going to write x minus 6 and x plus 2 equals 0. Negative 6 plus 2, negative 4. Negative 6 times 2, negative 12. We're in good shape. Okay, now we're going to use the zero product property, which I also go over in that video. X minus 6 equals 0. X plus 2 equals 0. Add 6 to both sides, we get x equals 6. and subtract 2 from both sides, we get x equals -2. But the question says we want an x value where x is greater than 0, so it has to be positive. So -2 is not going to be an acceptable response, so we have to put 6, which is the answer. These skills are still really important. You're going to have to do this at some point. However, this particular question, we could have done on Desmos very quickly. So let's do that now. Y equals 4x. Y equals x squared minus 12. Okay. Okay, you can very easily see that the x values are -2. You just click on them. You can very quickly see that the x values are -2 and 6. Again, it wants the positive one, so you go with 6. All right, next question. All right, guys, so this is a ratios question, question 19. A colon B, A to B, and A over B, these are all interchangeable. We pretty much, on the SAT, almost always, in my opinion, we almost always want to use A over B like a fraction, because we're just more comfortable with fractions. Why would we bother using a ratio if we're more comfortable with fractions? You might see a multiple choice question where the answers are like have colons in them or something, but you know, that'll very rarely happen. And even if you have the fraction, you should be able to figure it out anyway. So regardless, I'm going to use fractions. So, and what I always do whenever I set up a ratio, I actually did this in the problem set to number 5 as well. There's a problem like this. I write what the things are off to the side in words. I don't use abbreviations. So I'm going to do coaches to athletes. And then you see I'm quite literally going one after the other, 1 to 26. And then this is what they'll do. In the second sentence, they'll switch the order or something, and then they'll hope that you mess it up. Let's say it's like 5 athletes, 4 coaches, and you would do 5 over 4, but you see they mixed up athletes and coaches. So it's like you have to the whole time check. Coaches goes on top, athletes goes on the bottom. Regardless, they didn't do that here, so there are X coaches, so we're going to put that on top. And then we want to find the number of athletes. I don't want to use A. Actually, wait, I could use A. Yeah, let's do that. We'll do A for athletes. Okay, and they want us to find the number of athletes in terms of X. Okay, now that we got that, we're on business. This is technically a literal equation, but it's really not so bad. It's not like a complicated one. The hard part was setting this up, I think. Okay, so we're going to cross multiply. So 1 times A is A, and 26 times X is 26X. You see, guys, these ones just kind of go together when you cross multiply. And we get 26X, which is B. So yeah, guys, when you do a ratios question, just be very careful that whatever you put on the top is on the top throughout. And then whatever you put on the bottom is on the bottom throughout. You know there's going to be a trap answer where if I wrote A over X, that is going to give me that's going to give me one of the trap answers, and you do not want that to happen to you. So just be very careful. Write it in words what it is off to the side. Great. All right, question 20. Once again, I have a Ottocento on percents, and I have shorts on percents, and I have a short on these wacky exponentials. It's called exponentials plus time. That's what I call it. Please go watch those if you haven't already. I'm going to gloss over some of this stuff. Now, normally I'd be jumping for joy at this question because often all we do is just look at this multiplier, A times B to the T over N. And we look at this multiplier, and we do 100 times the percent multiplier minus 1. The multiplier is B in A times B to the T over N. And that tells us the percent. However, there's something really important about this question. And you have to see that what they did was they rewrote the expression without the 4. So we have to do that first. That's what we're going to do first. That's the tricky part. So we're going to use rules of exponents in reverse to do this. So 1.84 x over 4, we could write that as 1/4 x. And when you do a power to a power, you multiply. So if you're multiplying, I could go backwards and make it power to a power. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to do 1.84 to the 1/4, and then that whole thing to the x, which you're like, man, Kyle, how'd you come up with that? It's like, well, just practice. But you can kind of see that it will give you the thing you started with, right? You can at least verify that it's right. 1/4 to the 1/4 to the x, power to a power, we multiply it. 1/4 times x is 1/4 x, or x over 4. So it is right. It's just, yeah, it is kind of hard to see if you haven't practiced this before. All right, anyway, I digress. So now we're on easy street. So we just put 1.84 to the 1/4. This is now like an incredibly routine question that they ask all the time that we should hopefully know how to do. So please go watch those videos if you don't know what I'm talking about. Shorts, exponentials plus time. They're very helpful. All right, I did 1.84 to the 1/4, and I'm getting 1.165 to the x. So we've now rewritten it like this. And you see p, remember I said, guys, in my percent multipliers video, to get a percent increase, it's 1 plus percent over 100. So you see, this is just an incredibly roundabout way of asking us. The p is the percent. It's just literally asking us for the percent change. The way we find percent change, well, you can make an equation and solve it, which is probably what they expect you to do. But I always just do 100 times the percent multiplier minus 1. So let me show you guys some of the stuff. So first we'll do 1.165 to the 1/4. Or sorry, 1.84 to the 1/4. And you see it's like 1.165. They just want approximate. It's not a student producer response, so I don't need to worry about that. So I'm going to do 100 times their percent multiplier minus 1. 1.165 minus 1. And you can see that it is about positive 16%, which is a 16% increase. And that's what we expected to get, right? An increase because it's 1 plus in the question. So the answer is A. So yeah, there's some routine concepts in here, but you see what makes this question so hard is the whole to the 1/4 thing. Lots of people probably want to notice that. And also just the percent, like, why'd they have to do this to us, right? It says 1 plus p over 100. Couldn't they have just said, what's the percent increase? They could have just said that, right? But of course they have to beat around the bush to make it harder, so I don't know. All right, let's move on. Okay, question 21. So this is so annoying. I almost wish they didn't give us the picture at all, because you now have to copy down the picture and then add the sides. I was like, what's the point of that? It's like, can't they just give us the picture with the sides on it? Because we can't write on it, right? I don't know. It's like, I feel like they should either went all in on giving you a picture, or they should just not giving you a picture. I feel like just having half the picture isn't helpful. Anyway, I digress. So I'm going to start labeling the sides the best I can. Respectively just means in that order. So if you're having trouble seeing it, I'll color code it for you. Yeah, that's a word in English that maybe a lot of people wouldn't know. All right, so, okay, let's do this. Okay, ST is 14. See, the way I'm writing, you guys can't do this on the exam. That's why this is so frustrating to me. Like, I can do it, but, like, I'm just sitting at home. All right, 20 is PR. QR is 25. And we want to find the length of SR, which I normally call X, but X is already on the picture. So I'm going to call it Y. Okay, So they told us at the beginning that they are similar, which is really important. The order that these letters come in tell you which sides go together. I don't know. I think it's not so bad to tell, like, this one goes with this one. They're mirror images of each other. You guys see what I mean? This one goes with this one, and this one goes with this one. So yeah, I guess the picture does help for that, but... All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to set up a proportion. Similar triangles, all the side lengths are proportional. So we're going to do, I like to do big over small, corresponding big over corresponding small. So I'm first going to pick out a set of sides that I know both of them. So 15 and 14. So 15 over 14, big over small. And then I'm going to do a set of sides where it has the one that I want to find. So 25 and y, big over small, 25 over y. Now I'm going to cross multiply just like before. 15 times y is 15y. And 14 times 25 is 350. Divide both sides by 15, and I get y equals 350 over 15, which makes no sense to me as an answer, which is A. It makes no sense to me as an answer because you could see on Desmos that this actually simplifies to 70 over 3. So why wasn't that just the answer? I don't understand. I feel like they did it to make it easier to see, but they've made it more confusing as well at the same time. I don't know. Anyway, so this is definitely a concept you got to know. Any similar polygon, all the corresponding angles are equal, which wasn't relevant for this question, and the corresponding side lengths are proportional. Corresponding big over corresponding small, always going to be the same. Great, let's keep going. All right, question 22. So they told us we have triangle ABC, where B is a right angle. Doesn't really matter how you draw it as long as B is on the right angle. They told us that AB is 10 root 37. And they told us that BC is 24 root 37. This is on the reference sheet. The Pythagorean theorem is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. The only thing, we want to find the length of side AC, which I'll call x. And the only thing you have to be careful of when you do this is that you have to make sure that C is the hypotenuse. So the hypotenuse is across from the right angle, so that has to be your C. So a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So I'm going to do 10 root 37 squared plus 24 root 37 squared equals x squared. Notice how I put it in parentheses. Lots of people would forget to do that and put it wrong. Whenever you substitute anything complicated, negative signs, more than one quantity, you need to put it in parentheses. When in doubt, just use parentheses. No reason not to. Okay, now the rest is, if you've done Pythagorean theorem before, the rest is pretty much just using your calculator. Let's see, 10 square root 37 SQRT squared plus 24 square root 37 squared. And again, you got to make sure you put parentheses around it, guys. I'm getting 25012. So x squared is equal to 25012. Let's come back over here. Now to get x, I'm going to take the square root of both sides to get rid of the square. And this is going to be very easy to do on the scientific calculator, so let me pull that up. Okay, so we're going to do second square root 25012. I'm going to press enter, and it tells me 26 root 37. Okay, let's go back and lock that in. All right, so x is equal to 26 root 37. And that is the answer. That is going to be answer choice B. Again, I'm not going to go over how to simplify root 25012. But you really didn't need to have a separate calculator to get this one right, because you can guess and check. So I'm going to show you how to do that now. If you got a question, write a comment. Again, I highly recommend you just go on YouTube, type in simplifying radicals, and see if that helps. There might be some way to like see the ratio. As a matter of fact, I see it just now. This is let me come back over here. This is 10, 24, 26. In a which is like 5, 12, 13. So this is just a multiple of the Pythagorean triple 10, 24, 26. So if we didn't even need to do Pythagorean theorem, if you realize that 10 times root 37, 24 times root 37, the hypotenuse is going to be 26 times that multiplier, root 37. That's probably what they wanted you to realize, but I don't know how many people are going to notice that. Like, I still don't think it's worth studying Pythagorean triples. Like, anyway. All right, so let's go back over here. So let's say you didn't realize that. We go over here, we do square root 25012. And start typing in the answer choices. 14 square root 37. Nope, not the same. 26 square root 37. Yep, that's the same, so it's B. All right, let's move on to the next question. Okay, this is question 1 of module 2B. So it says we got a right triangle. Legs is just a, fancy word for the two sides that are not the hypotenuse. So the hypotenuse is across from the 90. So the legs are 9 and 11. So we're going to use the Pythagorean theorem, which is on the reference sheet. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. We can call the hypotenuse, which is what they want us to find, X. And you just need to make sure that C is the hypotenuse. So C is going to be X. So 9 squared plus 11 squared equals X squared. 9 squared plus 11 squared is 202. And now we're going to take the square root of both sides. And we get X is equal to the square root of 202. I can kind of already see that's an answer choice. So the answer is B, but even if you weren't sure, you could, type them all in, guess and check. Or if you put it on a scientific calculator, it wouldn't simplify it. It would just say root 202. Kind of feels like it should be simplifiable. It feels like maybe 4 should go into it, but 4 does not go into 202. Great, let's keep going. Question 2. All right, so there's no x is 0, so they didn't give us the y-intercept. And so we're going to use the slope formula, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. I'll just call the first point x1, y1, and then I'll call the second point x2, y2. It doesn't matter. All right, so m is 25 minus 21 over 9 minus 7. So that should be 4 over 2, which is 2. So if you type that in a calculator, you should get 2. And I see the only one with a slope of 2 is B, so that's got to be the answer. Now, you could go and do the partial equation, y equals 2x plus b, and then plug in one of the points. How about 7 comma 21? 21 equals 2 times 7. 2 times 7 is 14. Subtract 14 from both sides. 21 minus 14 is 7. You should get b equals 7 if you solve that. So 2x plus 7. Again, I digress. This is probably easier to do on Desmos. Although you do have to know those concepts for sure. So 721 and then 925. And I'm going to go on the next line and regress it. Y1 tilde mx1 plus b. And let me unhighlight this and translate it. Okay, m is 2, y equals 2x plus 7. And I'll make it about purple or something. And I can very clearly see that it goes through those 2 points. Again, even if you didn't regress it, you could just guess and check quite easily by typing in all the answer choices. Let's move on. Okay, question 3. I made a series of shorts on this. Confidence interval and margin of error. And I also have an Ottocento video. It's Ottocento number 3. Please go watch it. I'm going to kind of gloss over some of the things here. It's like confidence interval and margin of error. And then I have, I think, 3 shorts on confidence interval and margin of error, 3 or 4 shorts. Go watch those, please. There's just some stuff here that you have to memorize. That's really all it is. It's not really a lot of work. Okay, so this is a proportion problem. So proportion mean doesn't matter. It's the same concept. We're going to do the sample proportion. To find the confidence interval, we're going to do sample proportion plus or minus the margin of error. The sample proportion is here. It says it is estimated that 12% of all socks. So that's 12% plus or minus. And I go over this in great detail in the short, how to do the calculation. Margin of error of 3.62%. So I'll go over here for you. We're going to do 12 minus 3.62, and then we're going to do 12 plus 3.62. And we get 8.38% to 15.62%, and that is our confidence interval. We don't need this anymore. Let's come back over here. And now we just have to look at the answer choices, and you see really the only one that has those 2 numbers is B. So it kind of by process elimination has to be B. But what the confidence interval tells you, it tells you that it is plausible or likely that the true population mean or true population proportion is between those 2 numbers. So you're looking for words like plausible, things that talk about the population, and you're looking for the 2 numbers. A harder question would have more convincing trap answers, and I have questions like this in my worksheet that goes with Ottocento number 3, so please go do it. Again, you see it's like, oh, plausible, that we're looking for that. We're looking for the 2 numbers, and then we're looking for if it's talking about the population, so all the socks. So yeah, that kind of sounds like it's talking about the population. They might say it's certain that it's between those 2 numbers. That's wrong. They might say it's plausible that it's between blah, blah, blah for the sample. That's not right either. The confidence interval, the whole point is to estimate the population, not just the 310 socks that we took a random sample of. Great, let's move on. Okay, question 4. So first thing that's jumping out at me is I'm seeing this maximum weight of 5630. As we talked about earlier, maximum is like a less than or equal to word. So right away, I'm looking at B and D, which have a greater than or equal to, and I'm thinking those are wrong. So now, even if I know nothing, I have a 50-50 chance of getting it right. So that's good. Just got to be familiar with inequality words. If you don't know them, Google inequality keywords. Go to Google Images. You'll see a bunch of helpful results. Okay, so I'm going to do the weight of the 25-pound. So that's 25x. Then the weight of the 62-pound. So that's 62y. And then it says we have a 190-pound piece of equipment as well. So that's a fixed 190. And as we said, less than or equal to the total, 5630. None of the answer choices look like that, so we're going to subtract 190 from both sides. And if you do 5630 minus 190, you should get 5440, which is answer choice A, which is the answer. Great, let's move on. Okay, question 5. So this is a linear system. How about we use substitution? I really don't want to work with those ones on the bottom, because if I get one of those letters by itself, it's going to introduce a fraction. And I see this y is by himself, so why don't we get him by himself? That seems like a good thing to do. I'm going to get him by himself, so add 9x to both sides. Y equals 9x plus 13. And whenever I substitute, I'm going to put a box around the equation with the letter by itself so that I know to return to that to find the other coordinate. Okay, we're going to plug that into here. And we get 5x equals 9x plus 13. 5x, 2 times 9x is 18x. 2 times 13 is 26. I'm going to subtract 18x from both sides. I get negative 13x equals 26. Divide both sides by negative 13. And I get x equals negative 2. And I see there's only one answer choice with that, so it's got to be C. But if you weren't convinced, you can go back into your equation with the box in it, plug in negative 2, and you should get negative 5. Again, putting that box around, it just really helps me remember, okay, I'm going to come back here to this one. Why would I use the bottom one? Y is not by itself. There's no reason for that. Use the one with y already by itself. It'll be faster. All right, let's go back to, let's do it on Desmos. Takes probably about 10 seconds on Desmos. So let's see here. Y minus 9x equals 13, and 5x equals 2y. Okay, they cross right there. Negative 2, negative 5. That's the answer. Again, I really don't know what the point of some of these questions are. All right, let's move on. Okay, question 6. This is a repeat from Module 2A. The range is, go over this in my Ottocento video on basic statistics, number 9, and then I have some shorts coming out on it soon. It's max minus min, where max is the biggest value, and min is the smallest value. Because the data set's in order, it's pretty easy for us to pick those out. If it wasn't in order, that would actually be kind of confusing. So we do 52 is the max, minus 23 is the min. And we get 29. And that is the answer. Again, not that helpful for this one, but you can actually, there's not really a range function on Desmos, but still, this is just helpful for other types of questions. I go over this a bunch in my statistics videos. So I'm going to type in 23, 27, just make a list of the numbers, 27, 32, 35, 36, and 52. And now there's no range function, but you can do max minus min. Again, there's no way that was faster than what we just did off to the side. But for a future question, right? What if you had like 15 numbers and they were all out of order? It'd be really hard to tell, right? This actually might help. Great, let's keep going. All right, question 7. So I'm going to write an equation for each of these sentences. You could use B for bread and E for eggs or something, but I'm just going to use X for bread and Y for eggs because I'm going to have to type it in Desmos later, so just kind of save myself some trouble. You can use whatever letters you want, just not on Desmos. X, so 1x plus 2y is equal to 12.45. And the second equation says the second customer paid $19.42. Okay, 4 loaves of bread, 4x plus 1y, y is equal to 19.42. I don't know. I normally use I don't know. I think I used substitution earlier, but you know what? Maybe I'll do elimination. We're trying to find eggs, and eggs is y. So to get y, we're going to eliminate x. To do that, I'm going to get the x's to have the same number in front of them, but different sign. So the least common multiple of 4 and 1 is 4. So one of them already says 4, so that's good. But the top one, I want to say -4 then to kind of cancel him out. So I'm going to multiply this top equation by -4. And let's see, we'll get -4x minus 8y. What's 12.45 times -4? Don't know. Again, you guys are gonna see this is kind of pointless to do by hand. I would never do this by hand on the actual test, like ever. All right, the bottom one we're gonna leave alone. 4x plus y equals 19.42. We didn't change anything to him. Now we're gonna add these two equations. These guys are eliminated, they go away. -8y plus y, that's -7y. -49.8 plus 19.42, that's a -30.38. And we're going to divide both sides by -7. And we get y equals 4.34, which is for the eggs. And that is the answer. That is answer choice D. Again, guys, I can't stress this enough. I'm going to be honest. I don't even think they're testing you on solving this. I think they're trying to test you more. They kind of know people are going to do what I'm about to do. So they're not really testing you on solving. They're testing you on interpreting the word problem and how to write the equations. So anyway, I'm just going to type in the original equations I came up with. All right, let's see. Okay, so the cost of a loaf of bread is $3.77. And then the cost of a dozen eggs is 4.34. Coming up with the equations was kind of difficult. That might have taken you like, I don't know, 30 seconds to a minute, but you know, solving this system should not take more than 10 seconds. All right, let's move on. Okay, question 8. To do this one by hand, you can substitute or you can think about it conceptually. I am going to think about it conceptually because there's some important concepts in here. The second equation, the first equation is a horizontal line. Y equals number is a horizontal line. X equals number is a vertical line. That's just something you got to know. The second equation is a quadratic in vertex form. That is also just something you got to know. So this should just be jumping out at you right away, what these two things look like. Anyway, so vertex form, which is not on the reference sheet, y equals a times x minus h squared plus k. So right away, the vertex, we circle these two numbers, but because there's a minus in front of the h, we have to change the sign of the h. So the vertex is not -18, +18, +15. So you see how we change the first one, but keep the second one. Change the first number, keep the second number. That's because there's a minus in front of the h, but a plus in front of k. So when you multiply by a minus, the sign gets changed. When you multiply by a positive one, nothing happens. All right. And I also see that a is -3. So that means that the parabola is facing down. I know you can't see that. I'll move my picture over to the right side for what I'm about to do. So horizontal line, this is y equals 18. And then I have a down-facing parabola. Now to finish my picture, I just need to figure out if 18, 15 is above or below y equals 18. Well, the y coordinate is 15. So that is going to be underneath and pointing down, because 15 is smaller than 18, and it's pointing down because a is -3. When a is negative, parabola points down. When a is positive, parabola points up. Okay, so you see these guys don't cross at all. They have 0 solutions, so that means D is the answer. There's some important concepts you want to understand how to do in case you get a symbolic question, specifically with vertex form. You really got to understand vertex form of a quadratic going into your test. It's on every exam. All right, so let's do Desmos now. It takes about, I don't know, 10 seconds, something like that. Again, I go slower for the typing. Y equals 18. Squared tab plus 15. Okay, all right, I zoom out with my scroll wheel. I see that they don't touch at all, so that means they have 0 solutions. Looks like we did a good job. Great, let's move on. All right, question number 9. This is also a linear quadratic system. It's kind of weird that there's 2 linear quadratic systems in a row. I don't know what that's about. Anyway, so y is by itself in both of them. It's going to be harder to tell conceptually what the answer is, so I'm going to just substitute, set them equal. Again, y by itself in both of them, just set them equal. So x squared plus 16x plus 63 equals x plus 9. I've got x squared, x's, and constants. So the strategy is to get all the terms to one side. So I'm going to subtract x from both sides, and I'm going to subtract 9 from both sides. And we get x squared plus 15x plus 54 equals 0. And now this is factoring with a equals 1. Check out my autotento number 4 on factoring. I go over that there. So we're going to come up with 2 numbers that add to 15 and multiply to 54. Add to 15, multiply to 54. Hopefully ways to get 54 on your times tables jump out at you. It's 9 times 6. The numbers are 9 and 6. So we're going to write x plus 9, x plus 6 equals 0. We're now going to use the 0 product property, x plus 9 equals 0, which I also go over in that video. X plus 6 equals 0. Subtract 9 from both sides, I get -9. And subtract 6 from both sides, I get -6. And it says the greatest possible value. This is always confusing, guys. When we're talking negative numbers, which one's bigger? The smaller in magnitude number is further to the right on the number line. So it's not -9. It's -6. -6 is bigger than -9. I know that feels counterintuitive, but think about it. It's actually way more clear with the picture because you can just look left to right, right? Okay, so let's look at the graph. Okay, just going to type it in exactly as it's written. Y equals x plus 9. Y equals x squared plus 16x plus 63. Okay, let's zoom in with the scroll wheel. Okay, I see it meets at 2 points here and here, -9 and -6. -6, the point with -6 is further to the right, so that means it's a bigger x value. So that's the answer. Great. All right, question 10. So they gave us the slope and a point. We're just going to do what we've done already several times this video. We're going to use the partial equation. So y equals mx plus b. If the slope is -5/3, the partial equation, because m is -5/3, -5/3 x plus b. And now we're going to plug in the point. Notice -6 comma 0 isn't the y-intercept, it's the x-intercept. If y is 0, it's an x-intercept. The other letter is the intercept. So unfortunately, we still have to do all this work. So we're going to plug in 0 equals -5/3. You could also use point slope, doesn't matter. -5/3 times -6 plus b. If you do -5/3 times -6 on a calculator or on Desmos, whatever, you should get 10. So 0 equals 10 plus b. And then you subtract 10 from both sides, and you should get -10 equals b, or b equals -10. So now that we know the slope, -10. So now we know the slope and the y-intercept. The equation is y equals negative 5/3 x minus 10. And we can use that to answer a follow-up question. However, there is no follow-up question because it's just asking for the y-coordinate of the y-intercept, which is just b. It's basically saying, hey, what's b? And we already figured out b is negative 10. So yeah, that was, and you could also do this whole thing on Desmos, which we'll do in a second, but it's kind of like they're not really, I feel like the trickier part is, I guess, the fraction math, but you don't have to do it by hand. You got a calculator. And recognizing that y-coordinate of the y-intercept, that's just a long roundabout way of saying b. It wants, in mx plus b, it wants b. All right, great. Let's go to Desmos. Okay, we'll make a table. -6, 0, m equals negative 5/3, y1 tilde, mx1 plus b, and we get b equals negative 10 in the parameters, and that's our answer, as we talked about. And if you don't, if you don't even see that, you can click on the line you just came up with and see that the y-coordinate of the y-intercept is negative 10. All right, let's move on. Okay, question 11. Please, guys, please go watch Ottocento number 6. Linear systems, how many solutions? This is, I have a short on it, but you're not going to understand it that well unless you do the full video and the worksheet. I think this is the best video I've ever made. And it breaks my heart to see that it's one of my least viewed videos, so please go watch it. Again, I'm just going to gloss over it. It would take way too long to explain. It's like you're way better off just looking at the video. I go over a question exactly like this one, so it's like just go watch it and you'll know how to do it. So anyway, this is essentially just like 2 lines, and they just glued them together into an equation. The first thing we're going to do is distribute and try to make both sides look like mx plus b. So I distribute to 12, and I get 12x minus 36. And I distribute the negative 3, and I get negative 3x minus 36. And so if you look at the table, there's some really important notes in that video I'm talking about. No solution, same slope, different y-intercept. One solution, different slopes. Infinitely many, same slope, same y-intercept. So first we check the slopes. 12 and negative 3. Well, the slopes are different. We can stop there. The only case with different slopes is one solution, so it's got to be one solution. So the answer is A. We can also do this one on Desmos. So I don't think the vertical lines is that helpful when you're doing a conceptual question like this one. So I'm actually going to break it apart into 2 lines. So like the old-fashioned way, y equals left-hand side, y equals right-hand side. So y equals 12, parentheses x minus 3, and y equals negative 3x plus 12. And sure enough, if I zoom out, it is very apparent that these are intersecting lines. They have one solution. In particular, that one solution is 0, negative 36. Great, let's move on. All right, question 12. I'm going to be honest, I'm pretty sure I got this one wrong. My first inclination was to add the 5x over and write it as y equals 5x plus 6, and then interpret the 6 as a y-intercept like I did on a question previously in this video. However, I don't think that's what they wanted us to do. I think they wanted us to just think about it in the form it's already in. So here's what I ended up doing to correct my mistake. Okay, y is the amount of fabric she purchased, and 5x is the amount she used. So I could rewrite this as purchase minus used equals 6. Now that will make the answer a lot more clear. The difference between the amount she purchased and she used is 6. Okay, let's look at A. Kaylani made 6 suits. Okay, no way. That's not what it's saying at all. As a matter of fact, in another previous question, I talked about how all the terms have to have the same units. If she purchased yards of fabric and she used yards of fabric, the 6 must also have units of yards of fabric. Think about it. 2 inches plus 3 miles doesn't equal 5 kilometers. Doesn't make any sense. So if that were suits, the equation just is meaningless. Okay. So I would say the thing that's jumping out about this one is the units of suits. And C, the thing that's jumping out is she used a total of 6 yards. She used a total. That's not the... 1 second. Okay. So she used a total. That's not the 6. That's the 5x. You see what I mean? That's what we said 5x was. That's the amount she used. It even says that in the question. Used fabric measuring 5. So you should at least realize that used a total that has something to do with 5, right? And it's not asking about the 5 or the 5x. It's asking about the 6. So this is wrong. And I think I put B. I think that's what I did wrong. But let's see if we can figure out what's wrong with B. It says purchased a total of 6 yards of fabric. Well, the purchased, that's the Y. We just talked about that. That is Y. So that is wrong. That's not 6. Kaylani purchased 6 yards more fabric than she used. See? Well, the purchase has to be 6 more than the used for purchase minus used to be 6. It's kind of like you go shopping and you spend you have $14 and you spend $3, you get 11. If I tell you the difference is 11, you go, well, I had 11 left over. But if I told you got negative 11, you go, well, I'm $11 in the hole, right? Okay, so anyway, the answer is D. So I guess my advice for this one is pay attention to the units and make sure you just, even before you read the answer choices, try to figure out what each term represents in your own words. Great, let's move on. All right, question 13. I have a short. My very first short, if you scroll all the way down to my short, a flashcard on discriminant. There's stuff in there that I'm going to say here that, again, you pretty much just have to have memorized. So make sure you watch that. So the quadratic equation has no real solutions. These are all in standard form. When a quadratic equation has no real solutions, b squared minus 4ac is going to be less than 0. So you're going to go through and find A, B, and C for all of them. And see if you could do that for yourself. I'm going to put the numbers on the board. So for this one, for example, B is 14, C is negative 49, and A is 1. And make sure you use parentheses when you type this in, guys. So 14 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 49. I got 392. This one I got 0. This one I got 1176. And this one I got negative 784. This one is positive, so he's got 2 solutions. This one's positive, so he's got 2 solutions. This one's 0, so he's got 1 solution. The one we're looking for is negative. If it's negative or less than 0, it has 0 solutions. So D is the answer. Great. Let's go to Desmos. Definitely could have done this one entirely on Desmos, but I'm telling you, there's going to be other conceptual questions where you really need to use the discriminant, so make sure you know it. All right, so another thing you could do, like if you wanted to, right, you could like go and type in a equals 5. Not much point for this one, as you'll see. B equals negative 14, C equals negative 4. This is answer choice C. And then you could just go, and then you could change all of them. You know what I mean? Like change them each for each, write down, okay, 1176. Okay, let me do the next one, 5, negative 14, 49. And you'll kind of see all the values really quickly. That would be a really okay way to do it. I don't know. It's probably still just easier to just type them all in. Like, for example, the solutions are x-intercepts, right? So I'm seeing that this one touches twice. That's answer choice A. That's not going to work. Not going to type in all of them. You can do it yourself. Let me type in D. Okay, we see that the x-axis way down here, right? So it has 0 solutions. Does not cross the x-axis. No x-intercepts, no solutions. Great, let's keep going. Okay, question 14. This is also a repeat from Module 2A. I'm going to jot that down. I already went over this one. I'll do it again. So I have a chart on this. Exponentials plus time, A times B to the T over N. And I also have a chart on percent multipliers. The percent multiplier for percent increase is 1 plus percent over 100. You can hopefully kind of see where this is going. B is the multiplier. So we have to use B to figure out what the percent change is. However, there's a curveball with this one, and that is, do you see, we can't just type it in. They rewrote it without the 4. So we have to do that. The way we're going to do that is we're going to use rules of exponents in reverse. Specifically, x over 4 can be written as 1/4 x, which is the result of a power to a power rule. So we're going to do that in reverse. So watch what I do. F of x equals, parentheses, 1.84 to the 1/4 to the x. You might be wondering, Kyle, how did you come up with that? Well, it's just years of practice, but hopefully you can at least see that the that does give you what we started with, right? Power to a power, 1 to the 1/4 to the x, multiply them together, 1/4 x. 1/4 x is the same as x over 4. Now we are on easy street to find the percent change. So what we will do is we're going to compute 1.84 to the 1/4, which is about 1.165. So I'm going to rewrite this as 1.165 to the x. And that's our multiplier, b, 1.165. And we're going to use this equation. The percent change is equal to 100 times the percent multiplier minus 1. You can also just set it equal to the thing in the question and do algebra. But I don't know, I just find that so much faster. I always just subtract 1, multiply by 100. Okay, so let's show you guys. All right. So 1.84 to the 1/4. Okay, now I'm going to do 100. I'll just round it. It doesn't matter. It's multiple choice anyway, right? We get a positive 16.5%, roughly positive 16%, which is about a 16% increase because it's positive. If we got negative, it would be a decrease. Okay, great. Let's come back over here. So this is a 16% increase. And you see the question is really roundabout way, just asking us what the percent increase is, which is 16. So A is the answer. Again, that over 4 thing is confusing. But I don't know, it was kind of like, it didn't feel needlessly confusing. It felt like you had to figure something out, right? I don't know, this felt a little needlessly confusing. I don't know why they didn't just say, oh, what's the percent change? I feel like, I don't know. Anyway, Great, let's move on. Okay, question 15. As I was just ranting about, guys, please go watch Ottocento number 6 on linear systems. It explains this in so much detail. There is no sense for me to repeat it here. This is a hard question. This probably isn't something you're going to master in like 1 minute of watching me anyway. So please go watch that video. It's one of my best videos, and it really doesn't have any views. So, okay. So, first things first, I'm going to have to type this into Desmos later when we look at it when we're done. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to change the variables. P is a constant, so the variables are R and W. So I'm going to change those to X and Y just to make it easier later. This is called messy standard form, which I go over towards the end of that Ottocento video. Okay, 7x minus 5y equals 5y plus 11. All I did was swap out the r's with x's and the w's with y's. It doesn't matter. Okay, now we're going to get them both in standard form. So I'm going to subtract py from both sides in the first one. Remember, guys, standard form ax plus by equals c. And I'm going to subtract py from both sides, and then I'm going to move the 6 over to the other side and subtract 6 to the right side. So I'm going to get 7x minus py equals negative 6. I know I did that kind of fast, guys, but hopefully you can see I moved this guy over here, so subtract 6. And then I moved this guy over here, so minus py. The second one, really the only thing that's not in standard form is this 5y over here. So I'm going to subtract 5y from both sides over to here. And I get 7x minus 10y equals 11. Now the question tells us the system has no solution. So I go over in the video, that means a over d is equal to b over e, which is not equal to c over f. Again, go watch the video. There's a really neat slide in that video that just has all the notes. You could take a screenshot of it. And what we're going to do is we're going to just kind of quite literally pick out those constants. So let me do that. Okay, so 7 over 7 is equal to negative p over negative 10, which is not equal to negative 6 over 11. And as you can kind of see, what it's not equal to isn't going to help me answer the question. So I'm just kind of going to X that out. And I'm going to put a box around this. And now we're on easy street. All we got to do is cross multiply, which we've done many times in this video. So let's do that. So 7 times negative p, that's negative 7p. 7 times negative 10, that's negative 70. Divide both sides by negative 7, and we get p equals 10. And that is the answer. Oh, you don't put p equals, just 10. My bad. Okay, let's go over how Desmos could have helped. So I'm going to type in the original equation, but with x and y's, because Desmos doesn't know what p and what r and w are. And so 6 plus 7x equals py. 7x minus 5y equals 5y plus 11. And I'm going to make, why don't I make p equal to 1 or something? Okay. So we know it has to have no solution, which is parallel lines. So you could quite literally, let me make this a little wider. You could just drag this around until it looks parallel, and you can kind of see it's like literally right there at 10. But this is a little imprecise. If the answer were a fraction, like if it were like 19 over 3, it would be very hard, or like 19 over 7, it would be very hard to figure out. So if this is student-produced response, you really got to be seeing how to do it by hand. However, this still has value to us because I can type in 10 and be certain that I did it right before I move on, and that just gives me a little bit of peace of mind. You see, if you go everywhere these lines are parallel, they're not going to cross anywhere. Great, let's keep going. Alrighty, question 16. So, very first thing that should jump out at you about this one, a squared plus bx plus c, standard form of a quadratic. C is the y-intercept. So, do we have the y-intercept? And the answer is yes, we do. So, C right away, that's just something you got to know. You should just instantly recognize C is -6 because the y-intercept is -36. So you could now make this equation 2x squared plus bx minus 6. And then you could plug in any of the other points and you could solve. However, I'm not going to do it that way. I'm going to do it a different way to hopefully help you guys with future questions. And then we'll do it on Desmos anyway. This can be done on Desmos in about 20 or 30 seconds probably. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this equation just to teach you guys something important. Talk about this in a lot of my videos. Negative b over 2a. H, the x-coordinate of the vertex, is equal to negative b over 2a. We want to find b, so I'm going to get b by itself. To do that, I'm going to multiply both sides by 2a, and I get 2ah is equal to negative b. Now I'm going to multiply both sides by -1, and I get b is equal to -2ah. They have been asking questions where doing algebra on this equation is important. So I figured I'd do that just to teach you something new. Again, you can just go and plug in one of the points if you want. All right, so b is equal to -2ah, so b is equal to -2, 2, and then my markers are stuck again. Hopefully you guys can see h, the x-coordinate of the vertex, that's at -1. That's at x is -1, so I'm going to put -1. So -2 times 2 times -1, that is 4. So b is 4. So bc is equal to 4 times -6, which is -24. And that is the answer. Let's look at Desmos. I'm hoping some of you guys are seeing with all the questions I've been able to do using regression that this is kind of a handy thing to know how to do. All right, so I'm just going to read the points off the graph. I guess as long as you know how to read points off graph, you're good to do this. -2, -6. -1, -8, and 0, -6. Okay, I'm going to do y1 tilde, literally the exact equation they gave me. 2x1 squared plus bx1 plus c. Okay, it goes through those points. It looks exactly like the picture in the question. Now I just type in bc, and it tells me -24. So, yeah, it's like, oh, there's a lot of ways you could have done this one, but it's like, man, and you should learn them, right? But, man, it's like, you really should know how to use Desmos because, again, I know I had to practice that. I know I had to know how to do that, but I just did that, and I'm 100% sure I did it right, in about like 20 seconds. So, great. Let's keep going. All right, question 17. I suppose, guys, it's not essential to answering the question, but I don't know. I feel like it's only going to take me like 30 seconds, so I'm going to find the equation of this line. So the y-intercept is 3, And then if I draw like a rise over run triangle, which I know you guys can't do on the actual exam, which stinks. But rise over run. So I went down 4. So, and then I went over 1. So rise over run, -4 over 1. So the slope is -4. And the y-intercept is 3. So the equation of that line is -4x plus 3. Y equals mx plus b, right? B is 3. I think I did that right. It's not too important anyway. Now, this is what I was talking about, guys. This is a function translations question. And remember how sometimes I said they kind of mix up the order so that you have to like do the translation backwards? F of x minus h plus k. F of x plus 19. There's no k, so it's not moving left or right. But there's no h, so it's not moving left or right. But the k is 19. That means it's 19 up. Right? Just kind of looking at this. I go over that in my Ottocento video on function translations. Now, here's the issue that I was describing. This is not f of x. The question says it's f of x plus 19, and it wants the original function. So you now have to do the opposite translation to get back to where you started. So if we moved it 19 up and we want to be back to the start, we got to move it 19 down. So we got to move it 19 down to get back where we started. So to do that, we're going to do essentially f of x minus 19. So just the function. Hopefully that makes kind of intuitive sense. We add 19 to get it to where it is now. Okay, so we'll get it back to where it was at the beginning. We're going to subtract 19. And we get -4x. 3 minus 19 is -16. So minus 16. So this is the equation. That's literally, I don't even know why there's letters. You could figure out the whole question. I don't know why they did that. But anyway, so I just did it to make it easier to follow along. You didn't have to actually figure out the numbers. You just had to recognize like the slope was negative and stuff like that. Anyway, so it says, this is super important, guys. C and D are positive constants. So we notice that both of these numbers are negative. So for positive numbers to become negative, we got to put a negative sign in front of them. So we're looking for an answer choice where there's a negative C and a negative D, both. And the only one that has that is A. If it said C and D are negative constants, then we would want pluses in front of them because positive 1 times a negative number is negative. That is super confusing. They do stuff like this all the time. You got to pay really close attention to that. Again, hopefully that makes kind of intuitive sense. There's probably ways to take this into Desmos, but I don't know. I don't think it's really going to help us at all. I mean, once you get -4x plus 3, really all you got to realize is that you got to subtract 19. Desmos isn't really going to help. The question is just kind of worded confusingly. All right, let's keep going. Okay, question 18. Very first thing I noticed, these are called nested triangles. It's a triangle within a triangle. When they're at a 90-degree angle like that, they're just similar. I don't really, it's like I've just been doing this so long. I know they're similar. This shape, this particular shape should scream similar triangles to you. That is what they're testing you on, okay? Almost always. All right, so, and what I mean is, pay very close attention. The yellow one is similar to the green one. Lots of people get mixed up and they think like this shape over here is similar to something. That's not even a triangle. That's a trapezoid. So just forget about that entirely. If you really need to, on your scratch paper, separate them. Make them like totally separate triangles. I'm not going to do that, but you could do that. All right, great. So let's put all this information on there. AC is 3. CE is 21. And AB is root 34. And we want to find the area of ADE. So that's the big triangle. And remember we talked about before, guys, the area of a right triangle is the legs. So we need this side and we need this side. So this side here is just 3 plus 21. That's 24. Okay. How are we going to find, this is the crux of the problem. You need to find this side. That is literally what they're testing you on, just in a roundabout way. So if we could find this side, we could use our knowledge of similar triangles to find that side. So we're going to find BC. And to find BC, we've got two sides in a right triangle. So we're going to use the Pythagorean theorem, which is on the reference sheet. So a squared plus b squared equals c squared. I've already gone over it like 3 times this video. Lots of Pythagorean theorem on this test. Makes no sense to me. Anyway, so maybe I should make a video on that soon. 3 squared plus BC squared, and then equals c squared's got to be the hypotenuse. Root 34 squared. Okay, 9 plus BC squared, root 34 squared is just 34. Subtract 9 from both sides, we get BC squared equals 25. Take the square root of both sides, we get BC equals 5. Okay, we're going to add that on the picture. This is 5. And I don't need to do anything, guys. I don't even need to set up a proportion. Look how nice this is. 3, and then the full length is 24. That's times 8. So this guy will also be times 8. They're in the same ratio. So this one is 40. So the base of the big triangle is 24. And the height of the big triangle is 40. So we're going to do area equals 1/2 base times height. Area equals 1/2 24 times 40. Which equals 480. I didn't think this was too bad, but I don't know. It's like, guys, like, you can't do what I'm doing. You can't write on the exam. So it's like, I really feel bad for you guys. Like, on the paper test, you were able to, mark directly on the figure. Now you have to spend, like, potentially, like, I don't know, 10 to 30 seconds-ish copying this whole drawing down. And then you got to read it and figure it out. It really wastes a lot of time. All right, anyway, I digress. Let's move on. Okay, question 19. Please, 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 please go watch my Ottocento on percents and my shorts on percents. This is the definition of a question you don't want to get wrong. Okay? There's a trap answer here that I'm going to warn you about. But please, 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 go watch my percents videos, shorts, and my Ottocento. All right, so we have a percent increase. So we're going to do to find the percent multiplier percent increase, you do 1 plus percent over 100. I go over that in my videos. So 1 plus 400 over 100. I know what it is, and I hope it's clear what it is, but I'm going to do it on the calculator anyway, just because this is what you guys do. You do it in your head, right? You do it in your head, and everyone thinks it's 4. It's not 4, it's 5. Do not do any percent multipliers in your head. Make sure you know the equations and use Desmos. There's no reason to do it in your head. You're gonna make a mistake. The people who put 4 are going to get one of the trap answers, and they'll think they did it right. They have been doing this for years. Everyone falls for it. Please do not fall for it. Okay, so make sure you know how to calculate a percent multiplier forwards and backwards. All right, let's go back over here. So now we're going to do, which I also talk about in those videos, original times percent multipliers equals final. Okay, so it says the result is 60. Okay, so that's the final. So that means X is the original. And the percent multiplier we just talked about is 5. 1 plus 400 over 100 is 5. So now we have X times 5 equals 60. Divide both sides by 5, and we get 12, which is the answer. I feel like even if you didn't know what to do, you could maybe use your intuition to kind of realize that the number is getting smaller. Like, oh, 400% increase, that's getting bigger, but it wants the starting amount, so I have to go backwards and get a smaller number. So most people could probably cross off C and D. These are just way too big, right? I mean, You can't undo a percent increase and get a number that's bigger than what you started with. So yeah, but a lot of people would have put 15. They would have thought the percent multiplier was 4 because they did it in their head. So don't do it in your head. There's no reason. Great, let's move on. All right, question 20. I personally think this is the hardest question on the entire exam. There's a lot of moving pieces here. No picture, no numbers. It's just a hard question. So if you get to this point, this might have been one I might have guessed and moved on. Just to save more time, because counterintuitively, the other two ones after this I don't think take as long. So anyway, I don't know. Just keep that in mind. All right, so I'm going to draw a circle. And it says point A has coordinates, the center is h comma k. H plus 1 and k plus root 102. So positive 1. So we're going to go 1 right and then root 102 up because it's positive. Positive horizontal is right. And then positive vertical is up. So that is where point A is. And this guy is 1. And this guy is root 102. Now, I am going to draw a hypotenuse here. Because we went right and up, it's a right angle. And that hypotenuse is the radius. So I'm going to call him R. And we are going to once again use the Pythagorean theorem. It's like the 5th time I've tried to use Pythagorean theorem on this exam. Anyway, so a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Hypotenuse has to be c, blah, blah, blah. So 1 squared plus root 102 squared equals r squared. The radius, r squared, 1 squared is 1, root 102 squared is 102. 1 plus 102 is 103. We take the square root and we get the radius is the square root of 103. Now, by the way, this is point C. Okay, so that's really important. I'm going to put a box around that. Now, it says B is somewhere else on the circle. And it says ACB is a right angle. So I can either, it's not relevant to the question. I can go this way to make a right angle. You see how the orange and the blue kind of form a right angle? Or I can go this way. So how about I just go this way? I don't know, keep it all on the same side of the screen. And you see, this is also a radius. So this is root 103. And this guy is root 103. And it wants us to find AB. So I'm going to draw, how about sky blue, connecting this big right triangle. And you see that outer triangle, we're now going to do Pythagorean theorem once again to try to find AB. So root 103 squared plus root 103 squared, the hypotenuse across from the right angle, is AB, so I'll just call that AB squared. We get AB squared. You could just type that on a calculator, but you should know squares undo square roots. So 103 plus 103 is 206. We take the square root of both sides and we get root 206. If you put that in a scientific calculator, it will not simplify. Again, feels like 4 should go into it, but it doesn't. So it has no perfect squares that go into it. So the answer is just A, root 206. Very tricky question. All right, let's keep going. Okay, question 21. So for this one, what we're going to do is we have this kind of, it says we have 2 adjacent squares. There's like a large square and a big square. So I'm going to draw that. And they're like, adjacent just means next to each other. So I'm going to draw like a large square and a little square. And it says, and this is something I went over, guys, in my video, Ottocento, please watch these guys. They're designed to help you. I think it's 10 area and volume scale factors. Doesn't seem like it, but that's what this question's testing you on. This exact wording right here. The larger square is 3 times the side length of the smaller square. That is telling you the length scale factor, which is k. The area scale factor is k squared. So 3 squared, which is 9. So the area scale factor is 9. That's what they wanted you to realize. That is super important. Okay, so if the larger square is 9 times as big as the smaller square, the area is going to be 9 times some number. So why don't I call it, I don't know, b? So 9b to 1b, which I shouldn't write, but I'll do it just for emphasis. 9 to 1. The ratio is 9 to 1. If the area scale factor were, I don't know, 36, we would say 36 to 1. Hopefully that kind of makes sense. Right? Like if I have $5 and you have 9 times as much as me, our ratio is 9 to 1, right? Okay, so now that we have that, we're in business. We just need to read the question. That was probably the connection most people didn't make. I feel like the rest of the question, while wordy, is approachable. Maybe that's just me, though, because I've studied physics before. The electric flux of the electric field through the surface. Okay, so the flux is the product of the strength and the area. Okay, so I'm going to write flux equals S for strength, not side. I don't know what else to call it. Times area. So they tell us the flux is, the total flux is 4640. So 4640. And they tell us that the strength is 29. And this is the total electric flux. So we need to use the total area, which is 9b plus 1b. You shouldn't say 1b, but you get what I mean. 10b. So it's 10b. And you should get 29 times 10, so 290b. And then 4640, divide both sides by 290. We should get b equals 16. Put a box around that. Okay, now that we know that, we know that the area is 9 times 16, so 144 for the bigger one. And for the smaller one, it's just 1b, so 16. So all of a sudden, this is making way more sense now that we have some numbers in front of us. Okay, now we're going to do the flux. We want the electric flux of the larger square. So I'm going to do flux equals the strength, which is still just 29, times the area, which is 144, which equals 4176. Let me check. 4176. And that is the answer. You also could have done this a little bit faster if you noticed that the area was proportional to the flux. So 90% of the field or whatever is going through that larger square. So you could have did 0.9 times whatever number we started with, 90% times 4640. And that would also give you 4176, but I don't know. What if they weren't proportional and you were wrong about that and it ended up not working? So I don't know. I probably would have just found all the numbers just to make it more tangible to me what's going on, to verify that I'm doing it right. Keep in mind, guys, right? If you're, some of these questions that we did, even in Module 2B, they can be completed in like under 30 seconds, some even under 15 or under 10 seconds. So if you're doing some of those questions super fast, you can spend 5 minutes on this question and still be fine, right? So it's kind of optimistic that you have lots of time to spend on this question if you're going faster than normal on the earlier questions. All right, I think that's it for that one. Let's move on. Okay, question 22. This one is really not so bad. So if this is kind of where I go back to what I was saying, guys. Like, don't just stare at a question for like 10 minutes. Like, you want to make sure you get to every question, guess and move on, because there might be a question towards the end that, you don't find so bad, right? So at least that's for me personally in this case. I found the previous two way harder than this one, especially 20. All right. Really, I don't know, probably the easiest way, they tell us that the x coordinates stay the same, but this is data set E, so I'm going to label that E. And they want us to do data set F, which is created by multiplying the y coordinate of each data set of each point by 3.9. So we don't have to do anything to the x coordinates. I mean, I don't know, we could literally just write down 2 points and from the line, it doesn't have to be from the dots, from the line, the predicted values, from the line of best fit, and then multiply them by 3.9. Let's see what happens. So this one, I'm going to eyeball the y-intercept. I don't know what that is, but I'm looking at the answer choices, and I'm kind of just guessing it's 12. So why don't we go with 12? So 0, 12. And when we transform this one, this is probably something you do in statistics. So 0, 12, we're going to multiply it by the y by 3.9. And I'm going to do that on my calculator. I get 0, 46.8. Okay, now I'm just going to pick another one from the line that kind of feels like it goes through a grid marker. I think the answer key did something different, but I don't know. I kind of like this one. I don't know. I think that's like, be careful, guys. These grid markers are not going up by 1. That confused me. They're going up by 2. I think that's 18, 40. And if we multiply, again, just the y coordinate by 3.9, we get 18, 40 times 3.9, 156. And I can see right away the y-intercept is the y value in x equals 0, so the y-intercept has to be 46.8. So these guys are immediately wrong. They have y-intercepts of 12. And now I can either compute the slope, I can test a point. You could use the slope formula, do whatever you want. It's A. I'm just going to do it on Desmos now, and we should get approximately A. It's not going to be perfect because I eyeballed it, like especially that point 18, 48 probably doesn't exactly go through 40, but it just needs to be approximate for us to figure out which one the answer is. So let's look. Okay, I'm going to make a table. 0, 12, 18, 156, and we're going to do y1. You could do a plus bx like a statistics equation, but again, it really does not matter. I'm just going to do mx plus b. Most people are more comfortable with that anyway. Okay, so it seems like... let's see, did I do something wrong? I might have. Let me check. Okay, yeah, I see what happened. I typed in the old y-intercept. It's 46.8. My mistake. All right. So we get a slope of about, it says 6.0667. Again, if you use a different point, you might get a slightly different number. But it doesn't matter what the number is. We're not robots. We can't read that graph perfectly. But the only takeaway is that you look at these and you see that there's no way it's 1.5, right? It can't be 1.5. That's way too small. 5.9 is pretty much, 6 is pretty much spot on 5.9. So A is definitely our answer. So B is wrong as well. So while B has the correct y-intercept, it definitely has the wrong slope. There's a bunch of ways you could have approached this. I don't know. I just like writing down points and going to Desmos. Great. Let's move on. Okay, that completes the lesson. Please like and subscribe for more digital SAT math content. If you're interested in my tutoring services, the link to my website will be in the description. I tutor SAT math and all math subjects from about 7th grade to AP/early college level. Thanks for stopping by, and good luck studying.